Hey y'all, what's up, man? I'm Tami Sawyer, and so I talk a lot about identity, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. This is some of what makes me. Most importantly, we're going to focus on the last two tonight. If you can't tell, I'm a proud Memphian, and I'm a Southerner. But what makes a Southerner? Take a second, think in your head about what a Southerner really is. And we're going to dive into some of what makes a Southerner tonight. These slides go, okay, great. So when you think about the South, there's so many stereotypes. We love our guns, Southerners love Bibles, we like big trucks and F-150s. You know, you think about barbecue, right? Memphis is the home of barbecue. You also think about the South and you think about the music. We've got blues, we've got hip hop. Memphis is home for some of the best hip hop artists in the South. We got country music. And the South is also known for one of the most sordid parts of our history, slavery and the Civil War. But when you Google Southerner, the whole first page, the whole first 100 images are people who look just like this. There's one type of Southerner that comes to mind. Turn and ask a friend, have a conversation with someone later, and this is what's gonna come up. But Southerners are so much more, it's so diverse. They're black, they're brown, they're Muslim, they're Jewish, they're heterosexual, they're LGBTQ, they're rich, they're poor. And being Southerner does not just mean one person or one history. So how did we get here? The South was first, of course, settled by the Native Americans. We all know about the Chucalissa. And then our lands were inhabited by the settlers, the French, the Spanish, and the British. Along with them, they bring the African slaves. And we have, after the Civil War, a rush of settlization, of immigration by Chinese workers and Jewish families who moved from the north to the south, settling here. At the turn of right before the turn of the century, right before the Civil War, the South was populated by, Tennessee was 25% slaves, so a quarter of our population was slaves. And the United States was very close as well. Today, Tennessee is still a quarter people of color, meaning that there's a lot of diversity still in Tennessee to be honored and recognized. And the same goes for the South. The same goes for our country. So, what is the narrative that we're telling when we only think about one kind of Southerner? What is the story that we're sharing when we only populate these ideologies that only center one type of person? We have a very flat idea of what it means to be a Southerner. It's a very boring, flat, gray existence when we don't honor the history and the past and the identities of all kinds of people who have grown up and lived and love and cherish their lands in the South. That means that there's 2 stories, or 4, or 15, but only one gets heard. There's only one type of history, but there's so much more. So we think about the monuments issue. Heritage, not hate, but whose heritage is centered when that argument is made? We think about the history of Donald Trump. He says, let's make America great again, but we ignore the history of the people for whom America has yet to be great. These are the stories of Southerners that we have to also center. 1/3 of all immigrants live in the South. So when we tell the story of a Southerner and we only put one type of identity forward, we're ignoring the fact that 1/3 of all people who come to this country end up living in our great part of the United States. 47% of kids that live in Memphis are living below the poverty line. So we're not all affluent, we're not all middle class. Poverty is real in the South, and that's something that we have to have honest conversations about so we can solve it for all kids. This is what the South looks like. This is what Memphis looks like. It's Asian, it's black, it's white, it's rich, it's poor, it's men, it's women, it's LGBTQ, it's heterosexual, it's everyone. And the more that we think about that and we realize that and we center the true narrative, the further gains that we'll make coming together as a community. So what can you do? Reach out to an organization that doesn't look like you. Get to know someone whose story isn't like yours, like the ones who just went off. Sojourner Truth said, "Ain't I a woman?" when she was excluded from conversations about the suffragist movement. What I will ask you, when you only put one identity first and only center one narrative, ain't I a Southerner? Ain't y'all? Thank you.